Hello everybody, today we're going to ANTCON, the world's largest ant-based exhibition, and I'm going to get the first wave of entry. Today we'll be taking a closer look at the colonies housed at antics, the scientific discoveries present here, the countless exotic species sold at ANTCON, and I'll even be getting a private tour of the antics production room. So stay tuned to the end as you won't want to miss out. ANTCON is hosted by antics and it's been going on since 2022. ANTCON has been so popular within the recent years that tickets are selling out months before the show is even meant to start. So you already know that I waited for the exact moment that they came out and ordered it as soon as I could. So without further ado, let's get to ANTCON. Walking into ANTCON, I was met by the lovely staff, and then directly on my right, there was already a massive formicarium. Venturing into the room on the right, we had the shop and guest colonies. The first half of the shop, which is closer to the entrance, had all their nests and other formicarium supplies, and then the second part of the shop, further away from the entrance, was filled with a bunch of exotic ants, which were actually really cool. So genus like Tetrapanera, Ocephila, Odontomachus, literally anything that you can think of was basically all here. Unfortunately, where the guest colonies were, the lighting wasn't too great, so I wasn't able to get that much footage of them. But I'll show you what I got anyways. Someone even brought in an Ocephila colony, which was in a really cool test tube setup. If you don't want to look at all the formicariums, skip to this part. If you don't want to look at the shop at all, skip to this part. One of the more exciting parts of ANTCON for a lot of people was the shop, and the ants that came with it. Of course, we had Ocephila, like you can see here, but they also had some more, well, lesser known species. I'll just show you to them because honestly, remembering all their names is a bit too hard, and honestly, I think it's just better to look at them. So, here you go. Now, unfortunately, I didn't actually end up recording the whole shop, as well, I mean, there was quite a lot of it, and I did plan to do it later when I bought some queens, but it was just a bit too busy, so I didn't really want to make anyone else wait any longer. But there is an upside, as I did get a lot of footage of the other ants in the exhibition, and as soon as ANTCON isn't just one room, let's go and explore. Coming out of the other side of the shop, we had the Courtyard, where the gazebo was set up, and later in the day, the raffle will be held along with some other events, like the terrarium build-off, which I believe has all of its profits go to the Roofer Foundation. Heading inside, there is 2 rooms which are for speakers, and they have about 3 speakers throughout the whole day. They last for about probably an hour or 2. And then there's also the reptile shop, and in one of the rooms is a scientific display which shows information ranging from how leafcutters communicate all the way to microstructures within the ants themselves. All of these models were scanned by a very accurate and very microscopic scanner, and have been 3D printed as accurately as possible to display the different ant parts and heads of different species. There was also a microscope linked up to a computer so you could see the ants in ultra detail. And on another computer there was some 3D scans which were being rotated around so you could see the insides of the ants and how their biomechanisms actually work. They had a bunch of different species, a lot of queens, mages, and even a few workers, all in test tubes, which you could use to view and find out what they look like under a microscope. Next up was something that I've been anticipating for years, and it was Slug Disco. I've played their game for, basically since this came out, and I've always wanted to see what it looks like. Behind the mask, and this is it. I wasn't allowed to record the early access or under development parts as it was a bit iffy on whether I could release it or not, but I was allowed to see some of the animations and the rigs that they used for the enemies already in the game, and this is it. And wow, time flew by pretty fast, as by the time I got out, the first 2 scape-offs had already begun. And now it's time for what I know a lot of you have been anticipating. It's time for the Antarctic colonies. Unless there's something really interesting that I'm going to talk about, I'm just going to shut up and let you enjoy the ants. After I'd finished downstairs and recorded basically all of their colonies, I decided to go upstairs to see what the Snaps factory was all about. Now unfortunately I didn't actually buy any snaps to make myself, but the employee was kind enough to make one to show all of you guys how it's done. First he chose the dye colour he wanted, and then he put a single drop in. Next he had to find the flavour he wanted, and obviously it had to go with the colour, so he chose mint. So after adding 1 drop of flavouring, he had to put the cap on and shake it up. Now the snap was ready, there was only one thing left to do, and that was to put his own custom label on it. I'd highly recommend making your own snaps if you go to ANTCON, as it's just a really cool experience. The room next to their snaps factory was the nest factory, or basically just where they 3D print all the parts for their nests and then put them together. Now I was lucky enough to get a private tour of this place, so I'd like to thank you Antics for giving me this opportunity, as it's a really cool thing to see behind the scenes of how the nests are made and the machines that they use to do it. Not only do they have 5 X1 carbons, which are just really good 3D printers, but they also have this massive laser cutter, which I'm sure is very expensive, but it looks very professional and very good at doing what it does. I was also very impressed by the organisation, as on the walls there's a bunch of these trays that each house individual pieces, and I'm assuming they've got a system for it, but it just looks very impressive. And then on this wall as well, they've got a bunch of nests that are already built. Now that's the end of my private tour, but there's still some really cool species to see and some cool events happening throughout the day. Okay, now I've covered all the species that I saw and recorded at ANTCON. So it's time to move back into the courtyard and see what happens with the scape off. In total there were 4 scapes created, so tell me in the comments below which one you think is the best. For the rest of the day, I turned my camera off and decided to enjoy ANTCON for myself. But I'll give you a quick sneak peek at the species I bought, and then I'll show you the little goodie bag that I got from ANTCON. One queen already has eggs and a few larvae, so it's looking like she's gonna have some workers really soon. This queen does have some larvae, but because of her size, it's going to take her brood a bit longer to develop. The last queen, which is probably my favourite queen, only has some eggs, so she's going to need a bit more time to cook. Now onto the goodie bag. Honestly, I expected most of the things in here, but one thing that did surprise me was the magnifying glass and also the nest. Like, a free nest? Thank you ANTCON, you are the best. That's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed watching ANTCON from my perspective, or just watching ANTCON at all, then tell me in the comments below or leave me a like, as it really helps me out. But as always, I thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, please let me know, and I hope to see you in the next one. Later.